of years, that's Cartoon Scholar. And it's been over 4 years since the season 2 finale True Colors and over 3 years since the finale of Amphibia. Spoiler alert! From back then I had quite some notes about all this sometimes tough to watch stuff, heartbreaking plot twists, and the main character casually getting recruited to be a god of the multiverse. And now I have a YouTube channel to talk about this stuff. Consider like, comment, subscription. Since Marcy at the gates, I got strongly attached to Marcy. Back then I was 15, so I hope it wasn't creepy that I had a crush on her. I could relate to her despite it was both long before I was diagnosed with autism and before the writers were told that they accidentally wrote Marcy to be autistic coded. I recall the things that foreshadowed some sort of betrayal by her. But still I was quite shocked in the season 2 finale. And then she gets stabbed and presumably dies. If you watched my videos about Victor and Valentino, you might know that I don't like it when a show that is usually both unserious and mediocre allows itself something as hard to watch as this. After watching something so heartbreaking, I need to process these emotions. Process the empathy I feel for these characters. In some masterpieces, this might be a first step to a certain catharsis that you need to experience. But in a show like Amphibia, my attempts to process these feelings, for example, conflict with lack of ability I have to suspend my disbelief. I am probably not explaining my point very understandably right now, but I care about the characters more if I temporarily forget that they are not real. And in this case, I do care about the characters about whom I watched the second season finale. But then I can't process this because I do not believe they are real. Maybe I am complaining that back then I did not receive some sort of closure, I'm not sure. Or maybe this is basically the same as if I was complaining that the season 2 finale was too impressive in comparison with the rest of the series. For some time, Marcy doesn't appear in the third season. Then she appears for a bit and gets possessed in a horrifying scene. So we had to watch all of this heartbreaking stuff. But in return, the show now had this brand new antagonist, Darcy. A hive mind of former rulers and other genius newts possessing a body of a human teenager. A supposedly genius villain who combines motivation at the core with many Marcy's traits. And then, as the cartoon keeps being somewhat filler, we almost never see a struggle between Darcy and the main characters. Except for this fight with Sasha, where the fact that Darcy has something to do with Marcy doesn't matter and doesn't affect anything. I guess it was implied that if Marcy did agree to join the core, then Darcy would overall be really smart, with the main characters having no chances. And this would actually be like if Marcy was fighting against her former friends. But still, this looks kind of anticlimactic. Also, maybe the core in advance planned to use Marcy's memories against the main characters, I don't know. The writers really didn't come up with any storyline more interesting with such a character. Anything more interesting than just this wire being cut with a sword? At least Marcy did get quite some screen time in the second season. But Darcy specifically was wasted. Who says that Amphibia and the Owl House have too many parallels? Spoiler alert, but in the Owl House the main character first dies and then gets resurrected with superpowers. And in the Amphibia, the main character first gets superpowers and then dies and gets resurrected. In the finale, the writers decided that the cartoon wasn't epic enough for the main characters being offered the position of a god or something. This doesn't add anything to the show and doesn't contribute to the show's messages. And as in any show with an all-powerful being, I have the same question. Why can't he, I don't know, resolve the world hunger and many other problems? Maybe he isn't absolutely all-powerful, but what exactly does he do except creating very powerful magical stones, which then for thousands of years are used to destroy numerous worlds, while he does not interfere to fix the problem he created? And why does Anne get chosen again? Because she was supposedly the first person not to use these stones for evil. And he probably just forgot or something about a leaf who risked herself and hid the box in another world. Are you telling me that over the course of those 10,000 years, he couldn't find for this position some person as kind or even more kind than Anne, but also more smart and more competent? I got the idea that Anne would become wiser over the course of the next decades, but still, was there really no better option? So that's it. These were my complaints about how the story in Amphibia ended. My last two videos got a very little amount of views, so the channel generally fails. I do not regret having this channel, as now I will be able to keep saying here things that I wanted to say about the cartoons I watch. Plus, my English right now would not be so good if it weren't for this channel. I mean, vocabulary and grammar. I know that my pronunciation probably still sounds unnatural. Each video was hundreds and thousands of words of an essay. And for reaching like C1 in English, my thousands of hours of input alone would not be enough. Consider a like, a comment, and a subscription. Goodbye, everyone.